Okay, everyone. Hello and welcome to our webinar on the PPP Certification Program Foundation Training course in Singapore. Thank you for joining us. Apologies for starting a few minutes over time. We were just waiting to allow time for people to join who were a little late joining. In terms of how today's webinar is going to proceed, I'm going to talk to you about the PPP Certification Program training course in Singapore. I'll go through a presentation, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll give you an opportunity to ask any questions you may have. If you do wish to ask a question at the end of the presentation, you will need to have enabled the audio connection in WebEx. And where you find that is underneath the Quick Start tab at the top left of the WebEx window. If you click on the Quick Start tab, you then see an icon to connect your audio. So if you would like to ask a question at the end of the presentation, please make sure you have your audio connected. And then the way that you ask a question is on the right-hand side of the WebEx window beside your name. There's the functionality for you to put your hand up. So you can online put your hand up, and when I see a hand that is up, I will then unmute you so that you can be heard by everyone and you can ask your question, and then I will respond to your question. Just by way of introduction, my name is Richard Foster. I am the trainer for the PPP Certification Program training course in Singapore. I'll introduce myself in a little more detail shortly. So what are we going to talk about in this webinar? Well, firstly, I'll introduce myself in more detail, as I just said. Secondly, I'll talk about how my company, Foster Infrastructure, and myself collaborate with Knowledge Infrastructure, which is the accredited training organisation under which we deliver this PPP certification training. I'll quickly give you an overview of the locations of trainings that have been delivered or scheduled by us, so you can get an understanding of our worldwide footprint in terms of providing this training. I'll then launch into some of the detail of the PPP certification program. How did it come about? What's its objective? I'll talk about the foundation training courses and our approach to delivering those courses. And then we'll go through the curriculum and the schedule for the course in Singapore. I'll talk a bit more about our other commitments that we make to training participants. And finally, cover off on how to enrol. Firstly, a bit about me. As I said, my name's Richard Foster. I'm Chief Executive of an Australian-based PPP and infrastructure consultancy, Foster Infrastructure. I actually spend about half my time consulting on PPP policy and projects in Australia, and the other half running training programs, capacity building, policy advisory work internationally, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. That includes, for example, running training programs for the Asian Development Bank. Just last week, I was in Brunei running some PPP training for the government of Brunei to help bring them up to speed on PPPs. My background originally is as a lawyer, but I worked in the Partnerships Victoria PPP unit here in the state of Victoria in Australia. And as some of you may know, Partnerships Victoria was one of the early successful PPP units that developed detailed policy and guidance and has a strong history of PPP projects. I also acted as Deputy Lead Author of the PPP Certification Guide, and the Certification Guide is really the body of knowledge for the PPP certification program. So it's the document that really sets out what the training covers. I work very closely with Knowledge Infrastructure, or K-Infra as it's known for short. K-Infra is a training organisation established by Andreas Rebolo. He is a very experienced senior PPP advisor based in Madrid. He has many years of experience working in PPP projects in Europe, in Latin America, and also in places such as Florida and Central Asia. So Andreas and I really work together to develop our training programs, and we've jointly authored the training materials for this certified PPP practitioner training in Singapore. As I said, Andreas has many years of experience having worked in many countries. Andreas was the lead author of the PPP certification guide, having previously worked at Deloitte and in other infrastructure consulting roles. Where have we delivered certified public-private partnerships training courses previously, or where are they currently scheduled? You can see here on the map, I have previously delivered training for the World Bank in both Singapore and Washington, DC. Andreas has delivered training in Washington, DC himself, in Colombia, and in a number of centres throughout Europe. So we've got significant experience now in delivering this training, even though it's a relatively new program. And we continue to improve our training materials and our approach to give you the highest quality training experience that we can. So what is the PPP certification program? It's an innovation of the World Bank and the other multilateral development banks, such as the Asian Development Bank. It's got a shared vision of increasing the efficiency and performance of public-private partnerships on a global scale. So the main aim is to encourage a common base of PPP knowledge and to assist professionals of multilateral development banks and governments and their advisors, and also the private sector, to develop efficient and sustainable PPPs and help them to apply good practice, improving the access of PPP programs to investors and promoters. So under the program, there is a certification process, and the certificate covers 3 separate examinations. The first exam is on the foundations, the essentials of PPPs, and that relates to Chapter 1 of the PPP certification guide. So it's a foundation program that we are delivering in March in Singapore. Once you've done the foundation, that then leads on to 2 other potential qualifications. One is on the preparation stage of PPP projects, and that relates to Chapters 2 to 4 of the PPP certification guide. And then the final exam relates to the execution phase of PPP projects, corresponding to Chapters 5 to 8 of the PPP guide. The foundation exam and the preparation exam are currently available. The execution exam I've got here is expected to become available in 2017. We thought it would be, not quite yet, but watch out for it soon. The estimated workload to complete all 3 of these exams is 350 to 400 hours of study in total. So the certification guide, as I mentioned, it's really the document that contains the body of knowledge for this program. And it's something that was an initiative of the development banks. As I said, it's got 8 chapters, and the first chapter is the one covered by the foundation training program. As I mentioned, Andreas was the lead author of the guide, and I was the deputy lead author. So we really played a key role in putting this guide together. When you come to training with us, you are getting the training from the people who actually wrote the textbook. So what's our approach to delivering foundation training? In this case, for this program in Singapore, we're delivering a face-to-face training program where we will cover the foundation syllabus, which is Chapter 1 of the PPP Guide, and we'll do it with our own detailed training materials. We've developed our own customised detailed training materials that include things such as sample tests to be solved and discussed in class. They include examples and case studies from our extensive PPP experience. And also we take our students through a complete sample exam and an exam simulation. Once we run the course over 3 days, the following day we invigilate the exam so that following completion of the course, you can take the exam with us and complete the foundation qualification. A bit more detail now on the curriculum of the course. The foundation course reflects the 10 sections contained within Chapter 1 of the PPP Certification Guide. The 10 sections are as follows. The first section is about introducing and scoping the PPP concept, providing a basic understanding of the nature of a PPP. Then in the second section, we dive in a bit more detail to private participation in infrastructure and services. And we talk about what is and what is not a PPP. We talk about different types of infrastructure, different types of PPPs, and the various terminology that is used. We look at the different sectors where PPPs are used, and then we look at when you should use PPPs. What are the motivations for using PPPs on the one hand, and what are the caveats on the other hand? What are the reasons why you might not want to use PPPs? We take you through in detail the typical structure of a PPP project, who's involved, what their roles are, how the different parts come together. And then we look in more detail at how a privately financed PPP is financed. Who provides the debt finance? Who provides the equity? How the financial structure is developed. Then importantly, we look at what are the common causes of project failure. This is really important because if we look at why projects have failed in the past, we can learn from those experiences and look for ways to improve what we do in the future. We then introduce PPP frameworks. In other words, what are the rules and the institutional structures and processes we need within a government in order to successfully manage PPPs? And finally, we have an overview of the PPP process cycle. What are the actual steps taken during the life of a PPP in order to develop it and then deliver it? Throughout the course, we include discussion of projects from both emerging and developed PPP markets. And we use examples from both the Asia-Pacific region and elsewhere around the world. Each session includes sample quizzes and a test to be solved in groups or as homework, and we discuss the answers in class. So throughout the training program, you will get practice at addressing the sorts of questions you will see in the exam. And we also make sure that each section includes time for questions from you and discussion of the issues. It's not just a one-way lecture, it's an interactive training program. So what's the schedule for the course? Here it is. As I said, we have 3 days of training and then the exam on the 4th day. And we break each day up into 4 sessions. So over the first 2.5 days or so, we cover the core syllabus, which I've already explained to you. And then as we get into the second half of the 3rd day, the 8th of March, we'll focus more on resolving your outstanding questions, clarifying any remaining issues, helping to prepare you for the exam, and then running an exam simulation. Finally, on the 4th day, we'll allow you the morning to do your own study, but as the trainer, I'll be available to you for any remaining questions you have. If you want to have an individual discussion with me about any concerns about the exam, particular areas of the syllabus that you find difficult to understand, I'm available for the morning to help prepare you. And then in the afternoon, you can sit the exam with our invigilation so that by the end of the 4th day, you've completed the training program and you've sat the exam, hopefully with a successful outcome. What are our other commitments? We do make sure we always link the theoretical content of this training to the real context of the region. We include real examples that are relevant to you. So for this training in Singapore, as I already mentioned, we have examples from around the world, but I'll talk in particular about some of the things I've learnt from doing work related to the PPP framework and experience in countries like Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, Vietnam. We'll deliver the face-to-face training at the most appropriate pace, considering the participants' general level of preparation and knowledge. We'll moderate discussions and encourage you to reflect on your learnings. We'll make sure it is an interactive training where you can effectively comment back as we go through the training program. We'll make sure we conduct the exam simulation in as realistic a manner as possible. Some of you may not have sat for exams for a number of years. We'll make sure that you are very well prepared, and after the exam simulation, we'll explain the answers so you can get a really good understanding of how the exam questions are structured and how you can best approach them. In a formal exam, we will provide provisional marking immediately after the exam, so if you're nervous about finding out your result, you'll be able to find out very soon after, the same afternoon in fact. So that's really what the training program is all about. I really hope to see some of you there in Singapore at the program. If you do want to enrol, then the enrolment process is via K-Infra's website. You would have had links to K-Infra's website if you've seen any of the publicity for this webinar or for the training program. I've got the link there up on the screen. You need to visit that page in order to enrol, register on the K-Infra website, and then follow the enrolment prompts. It's a fairly straightforward process. We try and keep it simple. K-Infra provides really good support to you though if you are having any difficulties with the enrolment process, so you can always get in contact with K-Infra through their website if you're having any difficulty enrolling. Okay then, I think we'll take that as a sign that hopefully this presentation has answered whatever questions you may have about the CP3P Foundation Training Program in Singapore. We really do hope to see you there. We do think this is a really great initiative of the development banks. It really is important that we help to develop the capacity and capability of governments around the world to leverage private investment in infrastructure. And it's important that we help to develop a common language for PPPs and a common understanding, and that's a key objective of the Certified PPP Practitioners Program. So it's certainly a great initiative, I think. It would be wonderful to see you there at the training in Singapore. And with that, we can close this webinar and say thank you very much.